Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 in our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 348. I dreaded that first robin. So the key word here is dreaded. And the idea of this poem is going to be that there's something Emily has gone through that makes even the spring for her a challenge. Now, this is the opposite, obviously, of our study of poem 64-65, where she is excited about the spring. Now, Emily is suffering so much that she struggles through mental anguish to even celebrate the fact that the spring has arrived. Now, when this poem was published in 1891, they called it In Shadow, and I think it's a legitimate title, although Emily would probably have a debate about whether any of her poems should ever have been titled. But this In Shadow meaning that we come into spring, it should be amazing, and yet for Emily, not so amazing. Why? It's never made clear in this poem, and we've seen this in a number of our studied poems already. Speaking of which, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at LearnStrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've worked through our set of introductory comments. I'm hopeful that you can read this poem placed in the preceding 347 poems. We just finished with 347, When Night is Almost Done. Now, the great scholar Anderson, Charles R. Anderson, has called this, quote, her best poem on the theme of human suffering confronted by nature's gay parade, end quote, where Emily will perform what one scholar has called a virtuoso feat of tonal balance. It is interesting that in some ways we find our ways back to a couple of earlier poems. Do you guys remember when we did 252, I can wade grief, whole pools of it, I'm used to that, but the least push of joy breaks up my feet and I tip, drunken, let no pebble smile, 'twas the new liquor, that was all. Power is only pain, stranded through discipline, till weights will hang, give balm to giants, and they'll wilt like men, give Himalaya, they'll carry him. And do you as well remember when we played the game with 285? It went like this. The robin's my criterion for tune, because I grow where robins do. But were I cuckoo born, I'd swear by him the ode familiar rules the noon. The buttercup's my whim for bloom, because we're orchard sprung. But were I Britain born, I'd daisy spurn none but the nut October fit, because through dropping it, the seasons flit, I'm taught, without the snow's tableau. Winter were lie to me, because I see New Englandly. The queen discerns like me provincially. Now, there is an interesting observation that Emily had. In 1861, she wrote this way, I shall keep singing. She, in this observation, calls herself a robin, quote, I with my red breast and my rhymes, and then she'll finish with, albeit one who will, quote, take her place in summer and will have a fuller tune. Now, I want you to note the self-irony, the reluctant delight in spring through this poem. She says it this way, for whatever reason, her life of suffering, and again, the possible theodicy here, so we have said of a number of these poems previously. I dreaded that first robin so, but he is mastered now. I'm some accustomed to him grown, he hurts a little though. I thought if I could only live till that first shout got by, not all the pianos in the woods had power to mangle me. I dared not meet the daffodils for fear their yellow gown would pierce me with a fashion so foreign to my own. I wished the grass would hurry, so when 'twas time to see, he'd be too tall, the tallest one could stretch to look at me. I could not bear the bees should come, I wish they'd stay away in those dim countries where they go. What word had they for me? They're here, though, not a creature failed, no blossoms stayed away in gentle deference to me, the Queen of Calvary. Each one salutes me as he goes, and I, my childish plumes lift in bereaved acknowledgement of their unthinking drums. You could make the argument that she's just simply arguing that spring is something you can run from, but you can't hide from. In other words, it's coming whether you like it or not. Let's enjoy the use of the word dreaded, to hurts, to mangle, to pierce. Let's also enjoy that it's I dreaded, I thought, I dared, I wish, I could not bear. All of that before the turning point in the poem, they're here, that is to say spring. Notice she'll say, for whatever reason, I dreaded that first robin so, again taking us back to poem 285. But he is mastered now. In other words, it happened, right? I'm so accustomed to him grown, he hurts a little though. Notice we go from dreaded to hurts. And then from I dreaded to I thought. I thought if I could only live. Notice we go from so to only. Only live till that first shout got by. The shout of spring, right? Not all pianos in the woods, remember Emily is an accomplished pianist, yes? In the woods had power to mangle me. Mangle will take us back to poem 244. I dared, so we go from I dreaded, I thought to I dared. I dared not meet the daffodils. You'll, of course, remember Wordsworth's I wandered lonely as a cloud with the daffodils reference. Daffodils also takes us back to poem 247. I dare not meet the daffodils for fear their yellow gown would pierce. Notice we go from mangle to pierce. Me with a fashion so foreign to my own. Obviously, Emily either dressing all in black or all in white. Not yellow, not celebratory daffodil, yellow. And then notice we go from I dared to I wished. I wished the grass, notice capitalized, amazing, a contemporary of Walt Whitman and his Leaves of Grass. We've given full lectures in our series that we've called Talks with Walt at learnstrong.net. I wish the grass would hurry so, we're back to so of the first line, when 'twas time to see, he'd be too tall, the tallest one could stretch to look at me. Of course, the grass growing in the spring will be able to look at her. And then we go from I wish to I could not bear. Now we're back to the bees. The bees should come. I wish they'd stay away in those dim countries where they go. What word had they for me? In other words, I was so upset that even the bees of spring couldn't lift my heart. We immediately think, of course, of the bees of Keats's To Autumn, don't we? They're here, though, right? This is the key word. In other words, in spite of all the facts that I didn't want the spring to arrive, it came. Not a creature failed, no blossom stayed away in gentle deference to me, and that she calls herself the Queen of Calvary. The self-irony here is obvious. When we get to poem 1072, she will call herself the Empress of Calvary. Notice the identification with Christ and his sufferings, yes? Each one of the spring salutes me as he goes, and I owe my childish plumes. Childish is, I think, key. It takes us back to poem 77. And I think this is, again, Emily kind of maybe making fun of herself. Lift in bereaved acknowledgement of their unthinking drums. That is to say, the spring will bring its unthinking drums. Its shout, if you will, from earlier in the poem. Now, when we get to poem 1724, right near the end of our study together, she's going to say it this way: how dare the robins sing when men and women hear, who since they went to their account have settled with the year, paid all that life had earned in one consummate bill, and now what life or death can do is immaterial. Insulting is the sun to him whose mortal light beguiled of immortality bequeaths him to the night. Extinct be every hum in deference to him whose garden wrestles with the dew, at daybreak overcome. When we meet that poem, we will come back to our study here of 348. What's going on at 2a? I think her argument is that when we are in pain, even spring is hard. At 2b, notice her word choice. It's brilliant. Dreaded, hurts, mangled, pierced, bereaved. All of these words to talk about that acknowledged pain, sorrow. At 3a, I can't help but read this poem and think about T.S. Eliot's opening lines of The Wasteland. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. I think it's possible that Eliot might have derived some of his inspiration of the cruel month of April and the cruelty of spring from his study of this poem. Finally, at 3b, what was a time when you struggled to get through something that even spring, the beauty of it all, could not somehow ameliorate your pain? Thank you.